Okay. What lesson did we do yesterday?
Right behind you. You want to look at the one that says consumer math, Hunter?
Alright, thanks.
Yep. Okay, today what we're going to talk about, yesterday you talked about writing a check or how to write a check. Now, once you write a check, then in a checkbook you're going to have to write it in what they call a check register. Okay, that's kind of where you keep track or a record of when you write a check, when and who it goes to. So that way you don't forget, okay? This was the part, again, like I mentioned about my own stuff, this was the part for me that tended to get not so good for me. So, anyway, on a check register it says you use it to keep record of your deposits, electronic transfers, checks you have written, or any ATM deposits or withdrawals. The balance is the amount of money in your account. When you write a check or electronic transfer funds out of your account, you subtract the amount from the previous balance, and when you make a deposit, you add. So a lot of times what we're going to be looking at is adding versus subtracting. Now, for those of you who have a checking account, which I know some of you guys do, when you have your ATM cards, when you use one downstairs and you want to get cash out, yesterday I went and got cash out. It also comes up with the screen that says, this will also charge your bank account $2.50 to process this. So if you get $40 out, it's not $40 that you should subtract. What should it be? $42.50, because you're actually getting that on there as also coming out of your account. Now, my bank that I go through actually pays for those. So what happens in my bank is, yesterday when I did that, $40, then it'll say minus $2.50 for the electronic transfer or the ATM thing, and then right away it'll say plus $2.50 so that they pay it. I don't get any fees for those. Okay. You have to take the slip back to yours. Okay. For mine, I don't have to. It just automatically does it. So just so that you are aware of that, be careful with that. Your formulas for today. The first one says the new balance is going to be equal to the previous balance minus the check amount minus any automatic transfers. Okay. And again, automatic transfers would be like your ATM stuff. Okay? That's what they call those. Alright? So again, this is more of the subtracting part. So when you write a check or when you write or have an automatic transfer, those are being money taken out, so those are your subtraction numbers. Okay? Then the other formula that they have for you also says new balance. And it says previous balance plus deposits. Okay? So for example, deposits could be your paychecks. Some of you guys that get paid, you have a paycheck every 2 weeks or so, or twice a month, right? Or, for instance, one of my sons had his birthday a couple weeks ago, turned 6. He has checks from my parents. So then we'll have to deposit those. Again, that's adding into your account. When you have any deposits, you're adding into your account. If you're writing a check or getting money out of the ATM machine, you're subtracting from your account. Okay? So if you look at number 1, which is on the top of page 187, it says that your balance was $625.39. Then it goes on to say $875.80 was a deposit and $1427 was a deposit. Now, to go through this, what do you think the $875.80 was for a deposit?
Paycheck.
Probably a paycheck. What do you think the $1427 could be? If it's a deposit, that's putting money back in. What do you think that could be?
Good driver from Geico.
A good driver discount from Geico? No, it doesn't work that way. Honestly, if I looked at $14.27, it's probably not you owing me $14.27 because I'd probably just say you owe me $15 or $14. $14.27, that's such an odd amount. It's probably something like a return. If you use your debit card, okay, if you use your debit card at any kind of store, it works like a credit card. However, it comes out of your checking account. Okay? So yesterday, I went to Target in the rain. I looked like a drowned rat after I got done. But when I was at Target, I think my total was like $30-some. Put in my Target Red card, which is actually linked to my checking account. So it came right out of my checking account for that particular thing. Okay? So just so that you know, but if I were to go back and return it, and one of my items was like $13.99, so if I returned it with tax, it probably would be $14.27. And what they would do is, when you return it, they credit it back to your account, which would mean adding into your account again. Okay, so that's probably what that is. So, add those numbers together, what do you get? 1515.46. Okay. Then it goes on to say that you wrote a check for $953.24, and you wrote a check for $74.96. What's your balance now? So after you've deposited all those things, okay, make sure that once you put those in there, you add in all the deposits. Now you're subtracting out those checks and how much money is left in your account. Gonna make for a long day. How much money is left? 487 what? You tailed off. 26 cents? Huh? 36? 26? Okay. So, I know. It's all right, Brian. Okay, so on 15-15-46, that's where you added it. Now you wrote two checks. What do you think $953.24 would be? It's a big check to write. A bill? What kind of bill? Both car payments could be something like that. If you had two vehicles, yeah, it's very feasible. I think that would be the total for our two vehicles. Okay, it could be a mortgage payment, right? Talking about budgets last week. $74.96. That could be grocery store. That could be a bill. That could be who knows. So that's number one. On that it'll say find the balance. So that was our balance at the end. Number two. You end up with, or you start out with $7,357.87. You wrote a check for $132.75. Then you had an automatic transfer of $6,544.55. So because those are checks and or transfers, those should all be subtraction. Okay? That's a pretty big transfer to write for $6,000, huh? So how much money is left in the account right now? $680.57? Yeah, thanks, Francis. All right, that's how much money is in your account now. Now it goes on to say that you put in a deposit of $138.85 or 84 cents. Remember, deposit is an adding, transfer or check is subtraction. So how much money is there now? 819.41.
Yeah.
Right? Good. Now, real quick, can you ever have a negative number as your balance for a check or for your account? We talked about that yesterday, and yes, you can. If you overdraw, if you write checks that are too big for how much money you have in your account, you can have a negative number. So if you ever get a negative number, don't automatically assume, well, I can't have that, it's wrong. Because you can totally have negative numbers. I've had them before. Okay, they're not very fun. But for this particular concept, you can have a negative balance when you get done. Hopefully that never happens to you. However, it does happen. Okay? Now, when you look in the bottom of page 187, now they're going to give you a sample of what kind of a check register looks like. Okay? They give you something like this, where it says payment or debit. And then right behind it, it says a little minus sign. Then it gives you a column like this, and it has a check mark. And then it has another column that says deposit or credit. And then right behind it, it has a little plus sign. And then it goes balance. Okay? Now, with one of those things, just so that you guys also have this in your mind, is that they're not giving you the entire check register. Okay? If I showed you a check register, and those of you who have checking accounts, you've seen this, on the very far left, it says check number. Okay? Then it says something like to whom. So remember yesterday when we wrote the checks and we said one of them was to Harry's Hardware? We'd write Harry's Hardware into the check register. And then we have to go through all this other stuff. Okay? Now, if it says that you're making a payment or writing a check or using the ATM card, that is a minus. If it says deposit or return, then you're going to do the plus side or put it in the plus column. Okay? For those of you who have checking accounts, have you ever used the check mark column? Or do you know what that's for? Okay, for those of you who have one, if you don't know what that's for, that's okay. The check mark is for you to, when you get your checks back. Right now, they used to send them all back to you. All the ones that cleared from the bank, they used to have this big envelope that come back to you, depending on how many checks you wrote. And then what you should do is go back through there and make sure that what you wrote on the check is what you wrote in the register. And the reason for that is because what if you're wrong? Could that be a bad thing? What if you wrote the wrong number? Then that could be bad for you. Okay? Or maybe the bank took out the wrong amount. So what that's called is called reconciling it, and you want to make sure that your numbers match. That's what you do. As you verify it, then that's what the check mark was for, is that you can check it off and say, yes, I got it. Now, when you write a check, sometimes people don't cash them right away. And then what happens is that you have this missing spot in there for a month or so. Okay? Nowadays, I think at least my bank and some of you who have checking accounts, do they send you back the old checks or do they just send you a copy of them?
I don't write checks.
You don't write checks? So that doesn't help you? I know in our stuff, we get, it just came a couple days ago, we get a photocopy of all the checks that we wrote during the month. Okay? All right, so on number 3, first thing that it does, it says 448.35, and that's what it says with the balance that was brought forward. Okay? And then number 3 has a number in here where it says 46, and then it says like this, 92. Am I adding or subtracting, first of all? Subtracting, because I'm in the subtracting part. Am I subtracting A, $4,692, or B, $46.92. What would I be subtracting for this problem, do you think? Yeah, 46.92. This little line right here, you guys, just so that you guys understand that, when you're writing a check register or looking at a check register, this line right here, and it's also in the deposits, they also have a line like that. That's where the decimal point go. Okay? So when you're looking at a check, when you write it, like the other day, I wrote a check for $40. A physical check I wrote for $40. I know it's kind of weird when you say that nowadays, but I put 40 and then where the line is and then 00 after it in the check register. Okay? I do not put decimal points in here at all. Just so that you are aware of it, there is no decimal points when you write this. You need to be very careful though. There's also a line going down the balance column. So now, from here, what I need to know for number 3 is, I need to know what should be in this spot right here. So what am I going to do in order to find that spot? The previous balance was $448.35. You wrote a check for $46.92. Do you add that or subtract it? I subtract it. Again, this line, these lines, like this one right here, and that one right there, those 3 lines are where decimal points go. So when you use this one, take $448.35 minus $46.92, and how much money is in my account? Say that again. So? And how many? 43? Okay, thanks, Sloan. Anybody else get that one?
Yeah.
Okay, then it must be right. Number 4 then puts a new line in it. And it goes on to say, now you have 216.84 in that spot. So what do you think you're going to do now with the 2 numbers? Are you going to add them or subtract them? You're going to add, right? So you're going to take 401.43. You're not going to use the 448.35 because now Sloan gave us a new number. So you're going to take the 401.43 and add to it 216.84. So what is $401.43 plus $216.84? 618 and how many cents?
27.
27? Anybody else get that? Yeah? Okay, good. Then, number 5, it goes on to say that you have something in this column of $251.55. Does that mean that you're going to add or subtract? Subtract, right. So what 2 numbers do I subtract, Matt? Right? So what is 618.27 minus 251.55? Say it again, 366 what? 72? Okay, good. Now, just so that you guys are aware of this, if you screwed up the first one, would you screw up the rest of them? Yes, you would. Okay, and does this happen in real life? Absolutely. Okay, there's a lot of times that people screw up this, and this is what they get in trouble with because now all of a sudden they've got not enough funds in their account. Just as another side note, this is what my wife and I do when we're doing our checking account. Okay, just to kind of give you an example of something to do, and I knew a guy that I used to work with that did this also. Some of you, the decimals are the part that really kill you. Okay? So a lot of times what would happen is on a payment or debit, instead of writing 46.92, and that's what you had to do for this particular assignment, but in real life situation, write 47. Round it up. So then what happens is you're actually taking out 47 rather than 46.92. So then that means you have a difference of 8 cents. And that's okay, because guess what? If you round it up all the time for your checks, then you're going to have a buffer. So that you'll never have to worry about having stuff being overdrawn. Like the 251.55, we round that up to 252. So then that's 45 cents. And every check we ever write, we always just round it up, just so that way we have that extra cushion just in case. And I had a friend of mine that did that when I worked with him a long time ago. And he ended up having a buffer of a couple $1,000 and didn't really even need it. Okay? So if you look on page 188, on 6 and 7, it's going to say determine the new balance. And it gives you a balance and it gives you what's happening on each date. Remember, deposits you add, checks or withdrawals from the ATM you're going to subtract. Then on 8 and 9, they look just like what they did for 3 and 5. Bless you. You're going to either add or subtract depending on if it's in the payment column or the deposit column. Okay? Anybody have any questions about how to add or subtract and which one goes where?
Could you start from square one again? Because I'm still confused.
Okay? If it says writing a check, you're going to subtract. If it says that you're having an ATM withdrawal, you're going to subtract. If it says that you deposit, like if it physically says the word deposit, then that means you add.
Do you have to do this at all in there?
That'll be for 8 and 9. Yep. Okay, so there will be some, so for, again, this, if the number is in this column right there, you see where it says payment?
Yep.
Or debit? And right behind it has a little minus sign?
Mm-hmm.
That little minus sign is to help you remember that you're supposed to subtract those. Okay? Then you see where this says deposit or credit and it says plus?
Mm-hmm.
That's there to help you remind that you have to add. Okay?
Alright.
You don't have to fill in the numbers are already there. You just have to figure out what the final balances are. Okay?
Alright.
So starting on page 187 and going to 188, or 1 through 9.